Welcome back to the channel, you guys. I'm sitting down with George from UpTrade. We're going to be talking about all of the crazy things that we've seen, especially in the past 48 hours. George, before we begin, for those that are joining us for the first time, could you give a quick introduction?
Absolutely. It's a good opportunity to be here. Again, Andrew speaking with you. I know we're going to be doing a lot more. So my role is broker lead at UpTrade. We're a boutique cryptocurrency investment brokerage in Australia, and we work with clients all across the world in America, Canada, and in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah.
That's incredible. So, the market is quite possibly having the worst day I think we might have ever seen in cryptocurrency's history. How are you guys holding up?
Yeah, we're holding up really well. A lot of our clients are sort of veterans in the space, and we all are veterans. Been doing this for 9 years. I think this is in well, looking at today's affairs, probably one of the worst sell-offs we've seen. Usually, this kind of 45% drawdowns take 8 months to play out, not two,
Hmm.
3 months, or even less. So it's just been significant to see what's happening and how it's unfolding.
I agree. And we covered it on my live stream earlier today, but the movement that we've seen in crypto over the past 48 hours or so, it's actually looking like it's worse than what we saw in 2021. Which, we could take this in a lot of different directions, but how do you feel about all that? I mean, we're kind of in unprecedented territory here.
Yeah, 2021 was, well, that was as a result of the COVID sell-off, right? That led into
Hmm.
that 2021 bull run. That was a very sharp sell-off from memory. It has a similar feel. The difference to this time around is we're in a different economic climate. We have a potential new Fed chair coming in March, and we need to wait
Hmm.
and see how that reacts, how he reacts. Does he start cutting rates? In which case we go into an easing environment. I think if we don't have that, then we're talking apples and oranges. If we stay in this, paused state of stimulus, there might not be enough money to sustain Bitcoin to
Hmm.
the upside. And you're looking at, I don't know about looking at some of the unemployment figures or job figures, and there's currently a 200% increase that I'm seeing there. If we don't see the ISM, and some of the business metrics in the US improve, it may be a totally different climate to 2021 moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at what's going on in the market, they say that history never repeats itself, but it rhymes. It seems like a lot of these events somewhat driven by the Bitcoin halving cycle, but then you also have this like these strange phenomena that happen in the global ecosystem. Right now, we're seeing things unwind with the Epstein files coming out. I'm not sure how much you guys have seen on that side of things, but it seems like every 4 years or so, around the time that Bitcoin's halving cycle reaches its maturity, it's almost ironic, but there's also these simultaneous events that unfold that basically uh, capitulate the entire cryptocurrency market. What I find so fascinating about this, and it's something that we cover on the channel a lot, is that there's so many developments going on in the cryptocurrency space. It's almost hard to report on all of it. Even with just the Flare networks alone, it seems like every other week there's some major launch happening. But then we're seeing on the other side of that, none of that gets reflected in the price. Do you have any opinions on what could be the cause of that? Normally, you would think good news would result in a higher price, but as we've seen over the past 7 months, it almost seems like no matter what you do, every altcoin is following in the steps of Bitcoin. And how do we break away from that?
Cool. Very good question, very timely. Right now, we're observing the strength of others' dominance, which is the altcoin market, and we're looking at Bitcoin dominance as an indicator for maybe there's relative strength for altcoins in the downside versus Bitcoin. So we could potentially be on the cusp of that detaching in the next few months. We have to wait and see. But everything is tied to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like the index of the market. So if Bitcoin sells off, then obviously altcoins sell off relatively according to that. So your question, could you repeat sort of the direction?
Yeah, so I guess I was wondering, we have all of this amazing news that comes out, but then it doesn't always reflect in the price. And it
Sure.
makes me wonder, are we being throttled? And then this also ties into silver and gold a little bit. It seems like the prices are almost artificially being held back. Have you experienced any of that? Do you feel that there's any validity to that statement?
Well, there's a lot of positive news. As we know, some of the biggest banks in the world are now adopting and looking at crypto. Retirement
Hmm.
accounts, big institutions are getting involved. There's a lot of positive news. Morgan Stanley, BlackRock. But what we're seeing here is absolutely that there could be signs of suppression, whether it's institutional selling through the
Hmm.
ETFs. This is definitely not a retail sell. It's an institutional sell based off how quickly prices come down. I don't think retail has that much
No.
supply to unload on the market. So we're seeing it as we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the institutions are selling. We don't know why. Next few months will be the reason. What we
Hmm.
see is why that reason is. There's no bad news. I mean, we're going into potentially the US about to strike Iran, which could be that getting priced in. Epstein, we don't know what is called. There's actually no news, and we're about to
Right.
find out, right? There's a lot of rumors. These are just rumors. I don't believe in rumors, but there's a lot of rumors about some exchanges being insolvent. There's a lot of FUD now circulating, and we're gonna have to wait to see when the penny drops to see what is actually causing this drop.
Yeah, I agree completely. The ecosystem right now, it's almost like trying to solve a puzzle in real time. There's all these different macro factors happening at the same time. You're talking about Iran, those strikes could definitely be factoring in. Then we have the Clarity Act that got punted in mid-January. We
Yep.
still don't really know where that's going to. I hope a good bill gets passed. But there's some drama with that too because you know we want the Clarity Act to pass, but then there's also some things getting snuck into it that really hurt the everyday investor, especially on the stable coin yields. So there's this battlefield. It's almost like a spiritual battle, maybe not in a theistic way, but it seems like there's some entity or some force that doesn't necessarily want retail to benefit from all the things that are unwinding with crypto. I find it fascinating, not saying, you know, it's this way or that way, but it does seem like the ecosystem has a lot of that the big guy versus the little guy dichotomy to it.
Well, it's always the case in the world where the 1% win and the 99% lose. It's just
Hmm.
how things work. I think now that the suits are involved, institutions, there's going to be a lot more manipulation moving forward in subsequent years, and we're going to be seeing that. And indeed, right now, retail investors are pretty strapped. They're not really the ones driving this market, and
Hmm.
maybe if we get easing coming back into the economy and that starts to flow into consumers, but for now, the consumer is weak, and this is all driven by
Hmm.
institutions. So it's going to be an institutional cycle if we continue up. I'd say that, with Bitcoin down 45% and the alts down anywhere from 60 to 90%, we're in a bear market. I mean, or
Hmm.
have been for quite a while. So that's the reality. So we need to see some serious significant bounce or a V-shaped recovery to reverse this.
Yeah, I agree. And I know it's not necessarily crypto, but have you been tracking at UpTrade the movement of silver and gold?
Of course, yeah. So we offer tokenized gold and silver. So we do track those movements. We obviously saw the retail exuberance phase where everyone poured in, and of course people took their
Hmm.
profits and they got dumped on when the contracts expired. That's when silver dropped 30% plus and gold. I think the precious metals trend is still intact. I think it's just a bit of a cooling off more than anything. So my biggest thing is, well, how does Bitcoin fare as a commodity? With gold
Hmm.
and silver, that's still a very important precious metals. But there's a huge coordinated sell-off here across the park with indices and the indexes, and then we need to see whether there's something happening behind the scenes, like in terms of maybe they're trying to protect the U.S. bonds in the market, and they're trying
Hmm.
to sell off assets to protect bonds. Something's happening big behind the scenes. We don't know why, and we'll find out soon.
Yeah, I think it's all very fascinating. I mean, even aside from looking at the charts and just seeing these astronomically volatile prices, I mean, silver and gold are traditionally pretty stable. So to see volatility there, it tells me, it's almost like they're trading like meme coins. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But to see this kind of movement in the market, it really tells me that something is happening behind the scenes, and we might not necessarily know what it is. But nonetheless, I do find it very exciting. It feels like we are living through a transformative era. Not sure whether it's going to be a positive thing or a negative thing, but it is certainly interesting.
Indeed. Transformative is the right word. There's big,
Hmm.
big shifts happening behind the scenes. There's going to be a crazy year, just put it that way. And we've already experienced it. It's already February and we're already experiencing that craziness. So,
Hmm.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to ask you about tokenization because I think that's where some of this might be headed. You mentioned even just a few minutes ago that you also have tokenized silver and tokenized gold. How would you explain to the everyday man? How would you explain tokenization? Because I know a lot of people have a hard time wrapping around, like, how do I make a physical asset part of the crypto space? What is that, a blockchain, or is that? Could you kind of unravel that a little bit for people that might not fully understand it?
It's really simple. It's just having a digital representation of the physical underlying asset, but it's just a digital version of that.
Hmm.
So just like you have an NFT, which is you own the NFT, you own the right to that token, which you can redeem. One token can be like redeeming your 1 ounce of gold, as an
Hmm.
example. So you have that token, it holds substance and value. You can go into the bullion dealer and then go in and give it and exchange it to them and send it to them and redeem your physical gold. It is just a digital version of the physical underlying asset. It is not a contract. You don't own the paper, right? It is an actual ownership. It's just digital version of that. That's the
Hmm.
best way I can explain it. It'd be like if you owned a block of land in Miami, and then all of a sudden there's a metaverse, and then they make a one-to-one value of the Miami land in the metaverse in the virtual world. It's the
Hmm.
same concept. It's one-to-one, the same value. It's redeemable. The only difference is it's a digital version. That's the only difference.
That's a really good way of putting it. I
Yeah.
find it fascinating because I think about certain things. Like, let's say, for example, you're trying to close on a house, right? Like, people, I don't know if the people really realize just how lengthy the process of home purchasing is until they're in it themselves. And sometimes it can take a month or two to clear a transaction. I'm wondering with the tokenization of the real estate market, if that's going to make things like that far more rapid. I mean, in theory, you could settle a sell you could settle the sale of a house right then and there when you sign the contract. And those are the kinds of things I think about when, seeing where this crypto market is going. Because beyond just from an investor standpoint, what I want to see is, do we have real world utility coming out of crypto? Because to me, that's the true beauty of crypto. It's not just about, getting rich quick and posting the photos in Miami with the Lambo and things like that. Of course, it's fun to talk about those things, but the idea of moving money in the same speed that you send a text message or an email, I find that to be the thing I'm really interested in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So people will be transacting tokens, which is the representation of the land, so they can settle on properties instantly, barring all the contracts, legal contracts are done. Absolutely, it's something that is coming at lightning speed.
Hmm. Now, what impact do you think that would have on the price of some of the existing tokens that we've already got? Things like XRP, HBAR. I know that Ondo is a big one in the real estate space. Do you think that's going to drive a massive amount of inflows into those type of tokens?
I mean, that's what creates value and utility. So absolutely, if Ondo is the pioneer of real world assets and brings a lot of that thing on those value of products on chain, equity, stocks, bonds, whatever it is, they're definitely going to be benefiting. Just like as an example, Hyperliquid right now is trading silver and gold commodities on their platform, and everyone's buying and trading gold and silver on their platform. That's why they're outperforming the market. It's the same concept. It drives utility and it drives value.
Mhm.
Do I think it's going to happen? I don't have a crystal ball, but there's a huge fleet to do that at the moment across all chains.
Of
As you said,
course.
HBAR, Ondo, Solana, etc.
Perfect. And,
Yeah.
and so let's say that you're someone that maybe you're new to crypto and you're still in your researching phase and figuring things out. With a dip like what we've just seen today, I mean, in some cases, I'm looking at XRP and we're down 50% on the year. Flare down 56%. I believe HBAR down somewhere in that 40% range on the year. There's a lot of different buying opportunities right now, but it can feel probably very overwhelming for somebody
Sure.
to decide, well, this might be this amazing opportunity, but there's so many things and I don't even know what to pick. What advice would you give someone as a starting point, just so that
Yeah.
they can get integrated into this ecosystem?
So I think the first thing is if the best advice I can give is work with someone that has been there and done that and made all the mistakes and has can give you context. I.e., if you want to work with me, there's an opportunity. You can have a free consultation. That's probably the best way to do it. If I was starting 9 years ago, I would do the same thing. I'd speak to an expert. This is not a hobby. It is not a fun game that you just, go and play on the weekends. You're investing real hard-earned money, and you want to make sure that you're treating it as such and being respectful to what you've built. And as we know, in this climate, money's hard to come by. So if you think there's opportunity and you wanted to discuss and strategize what that looks like, I can provide factual information and data to help drive better decisions. But in terms of my piece of advice, it would be, people always they make the wrong mistake. They sell, and this is so simple. They sell when the price is low and they buy when the price is high.
Hmm.
Right now, the price is low. Right. So I can't tell you what to do, but I mean, if I was someone that wanted to get into crypto right now, it would be, in my opinion, an interesting time.
Hmm. And then for some people that, that this might be sort of the dark side of crypto, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that probably have their, maybe for better or worse, have their life savings into crypto. What advice would you give, and maybe not necessarily advice, but what guidance would you give to somebody that might be going through a bad time right now? You just watched your portfolio it basically be eviscerated overnight.
Yeah.
There, I've seen in the Twitter space, I've been on the Instagram stories, things like that. I can see there's some people out there that are not handling this well. What kind of guidance would you give just to maybe give them some perspective or make them feel better about this situation?
Yeah. So the thing is that with every crisis is opportunity, and usually there's always something you can do in investing. There's strategy, there's decision making, and one of the decisions is to do nothing. That is a decision, and you can sit on
Hmm.
your hand and wait. There's other strategies where people, obviously have tax strategies to sell and to realize the loss to carry forward against other losses. Or for an example, I'm not an accountant, but there's many ways to take advantage of this time, and you don't need to just do one or the other. And it's about having a sounding board, someone that can help you remove the emotion to understand what
Hmm.
options you do have. Like for an example, a lot of our clients, they're holding hyperliquid. Now I don't know if you've seen, but it's not selling off. Bitcoin's down 10% plus. Hyperliquid is not sold off. So people are protected by having the right assets. So there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of opportunity to safeguard drawdowns like
Hmm.
this by having options.
Yeah, it's perfect. And harkening back to 2021, do you have any like specific stories that you can share? Because I know that you said you've been in this space much longer even than myself. I started in 2024. What was it like being in the crypto space during that time? If you look at the charts from 2022 and 2023, there's almost no recovery there. So it probably seemed like the dark ages for crypto. What was it like being through that?
Yeah, it was a lot of exuberance, a lot less coins back then, and everything seemed to just go up anywhere from 20 to 100x. So you could throw a dart at the board and make money. What followed was obviously a pretty brutal sell-off. Like always, there's cyclical events. For those that knew about cycles, they benefited, and for those that didn't, they obviously were pretty impacted. But we had a lot of clients do 100x on Theta as an example. Some people they turned $10,000 into 2 million or even more.
Hmm.
Back in 2021. Right. So the thing is that this is not the current climate. So we cannot look at the past and
Right.
think what's going to happen now. This is a different climate. 2021 was a very different overall. This is not like that at all. And I think even drawing comparisons is not fair, because it's just completely different. Yeah.
That's fair. I've been thinking, after we get some mainstream adoption through this, especially, if you get the Clarity Act through, I'm wondering if we never actually see a sell-off quite like we're seeing right now happen again. Do you think that there's any credence behind that? Do you think that we might be seeing the end of this cyclical nature of this 4-year cycle or season, as people on social media are calling it?
I think adoption through the Clarity Act and more money pouring into the space is what's needed to prevent these cyclical events.
Hmm.
I think the most simplest way I can describe it to you is, think of like a little child. They're volatile. They throw tantrums. They're up. They're down. They're not happy. That's what crypto is. It's a baby, or maybe like an adult these days, a teenager, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, that's currently what we're going through. When the Clarity Act and more institutions come on board and things mature and it becomes a grown adult, then there'll be less volatility. It'll be more of like just a traditional uptrend, not a cyclical event. So things will smooth out over time, as more money pours into the space, and things like Clarity Act will be the drivers of that.
I like that analogy you just made of crypto started out as a baby, now it's like a teenager. It's kind of going through its angsty years. I do think that once we get this full stream adoption, I think we're probably due for a major price appreciation, but I do think it'll stabilize after that. Would that be something you tend to agree with? That
Oh
maybe
yeah,
down the
like
road in 2030, 2035, we no longer see these 50% years or even these 100% years.
oh yeah. If the growth rate keeps continuing, then by all means, more money means more maturity, more stability. Maybe it's a good opportunity. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's an opportunity for people to take advantage of volatility.
Hmm.
Whilst it's here. Yeah.
That's because to me, that's kind of what it seems like Bitcoin's almost done. Like when I look at the Bitcoin history, um, I mean, there were some years when 100% was almost like a weekly occurrence there back in the beginning. And now I tend to think we probably won't see a Bitcoin another year in Bitcoin where it does 100% or more. And I could be wrong about that, but I've been thinking that as Bitcoin matures, it'll become more reliable as a store of value, but maybe it starts to go away from being a hyper aggressive form of investment. And then I look at the altcoin market. You got your XRP, you've got your HBAR, Flare, and Quant. I'm looking at those and thinking, are those following in the same footsteps that the original Bitcoin did, and that right now they're much more volatile, but give it 5, maybe 10 years, those different tokens and those coins are going to get that maturity as well, and we'll probably see some reduced volatility. Do you agree with that?
I don't have a crystal ball for the altcoins, and I don't really hold much space for them in that way. I
Hmm.
just play it cycle by cycle, unfortunately, me personally. But yeah, potentially if XRP positions itself as a the token for the new financial era and helping with cross-border payments and bridging of the central bank currencies, by all means, it could stabilize if adoption and more money pours in.
Hmm.
Again, it's very forward thinking. I only think cycle to cycle where we're currently at.
All right, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
So, do you? I guess my question to that would be: do you think that we'd see some decoupling then, or is that from your standpoint? If you're saying from cycle to cycle, are you leaning more towards we're going to continue the Bitcoin patterns, or do you think that there's
For
potential for
now.
decoupling?
For now, we're going to continue the Bitcoin patterns. I don't think the space is mature enough, and some of the metrics are still very heavily pinned to Bitcoin. So
Hmm.
that's just an opinion. It could change. I could be
Right.
wrong. That's kind of what I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know at least, especially in the XRP Flare communities, it's almost like people are like chomping at the bit for these coins to decouple from Bitcoin. Um, it's almost an interesting game. It's like how do you free yourself from that? So it's something that we talk a lot about here on the channel.
Yeah. Well, we always look at key trends against the Bitcoin pairing, like hyperliquid being one of them. But if you do want to learn more, please feel free to reach out. Happy to have a
Hmm.
conversation with anyone that wants to discuss this in more detail, and work with us at UpTrade.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then how would people get in contact with you guys? Do you have a link that we're able to share?
Yeah, I'll share through a unique link that's for you in the community, and they can obviously chat with me, have a free consultation just to see what we do and what you do, and see if it's a fit.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're very boutique. We don't work with everyone. We're very selective about who we work with because it needs to be a fit for both parties. And yeah, you receive that. You'll have my contact number and email, and so I'd look forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, awesome. At that point, there was one thing in particular. We talked about it in the last episode. I wanted to retrace some steps on that. I find something very interesting is the retirement accounts. On your website, it's listed as 401k. I wanted to retrace to that a little bit. It's something that I myself am pretty interested in. Can you kind of break that down for us? What would be the process if you were someone that held an IRA with a standard of brokerage here, maybe like Fidelity or Vanguard? What would be the procedure that, get us from point A to point B to getting some of those funds over there on the normal IRA side of things and getting them into crypto? How would that look like?
Yeah, so the main thing is having the correct entity structure, which an attorney can help you set up, a self-directed IRA. Then you would go through the onboarding process with UpTrade to get that verified and onboarded. So all the documentation required. Then once the account is created, you can then transfer funds from your IRA account, self-directed, into UpTrade's banking and the US domestic bank accounts, and then freely make purchases in the IRA name in UpTrade. And that's how it simply works end to end. So you have the opportunity to buy, sell, and swap over 500 currencies at your discretion, and it's a very handheld approach with security at the forefront of that.
Okay, that's amazing. It sounds like it's a lot easier than sometimes in the crypto space it's like I don't even know how to get some of these balls rolling. So it sounds like you guys kind of I don't want to say handhold, but it's a pretty smooth process, right?
Yeah, it's a white glove service, and that's what we value most is how do we make something very complex very simple and give a good experience.
That's perfect. Well, it looks like we got about 10 minutes left on the call. Do you have any questions for me or any burning topics that you want to address for the next couple of minutes?
No, I'd love to talk a lot more. It's as you know, the markets when they're moving this much, there's a lot
Yeah.
of people wanting to buy. So I've got to get back to the day. But it's been a really good pleasure to have you here and be on your channel, and I appreciate
Yeah.
it, Anne.
Well, thank
Mm.
you. Well, I'll have your link posted below, and for those of you at home, I do think the Roth 401k or the traditional 401k options could be an interesting play for those of you that are looking to get some deeper exposure into the crypto markets with your retirement accounts. So definitely something that I'd love to talk more about, and understanding it's probably a very crazy day for you guys. So we'll let you get cracking back to it. And with that, you guys, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks to everyone for watching. Take care.
Take care.